I'm looking at the Christmas decorations in the box at my feet, trying to decide if I should bother putting them up this year. It's the first week of December, and the house feels colder than usual, though the thermostat says 72 degrees. I pulled this box down from the attic yesterday, and it's been sitting here ever since, right next to my chair in the living room, and I keep meaning to open it properly, but I haven't. There's an ornament visible through the cardboard flap, one of those handmade ones the kids did in school. I can see Jenny's name written in her careful second-grade handwriting, a little wobbly, but proud. She must be 41 now. Hard to believe. I haven't seen her since last Easter, and that was just for a few hours. She drove up with the kids, stayed for lunch, said they had to get back because of something one of the boys had going on. Soccer or baseball. I can't remember which. The house is quiet most of the time now. That's the thing nobody tells you about getting old. How quiet it gets. When Walter was alive, there was at least the sound of another person. His footsteps in the kitchen in the morning, the television on in the den, his voice calling to ask if I'd seen his reading glasses. Even after the kids moved out, we still had each other. Still had conversation and routine, and the small daily interactions that make a house feel lived in. He's been gone 3 years now, and I still sometimes expect to hear him. The quiet has a weight to it. It presses down on you in ways I didn't anticipate. I've gotten used to it mostly, the same way you get used to anything if it goes on long enough. But there are days when it feels heavier than others. Today is one of those days. I've been thinking about Jenny and Paul and Amanda more than usual lately. My 3 children, all grown, all living their own lives in their own towns with their own families and problems and joys I'm only vaguely aware of. Paul called last week, talked for maybe 10 minutes. He was driving home from work. I could hear the sound of traffic through the phone, and he just thought to check in. We talked about the weather, about how his job was going, about whether I needed anything done around the house before winter really set in. I said I was fine. Everything was fine. He said that was good, and that he'd try to get over to visit soon. I didn't ask when soon was. I've learned not to ask questions like that, because the answers are always vague, and then when soon doesn't come I feel worse than if we just left it unsaid. Amanda sent a text message 2 days ago. Just a quick note, saying she was thinking of me and hoped I was doing well. I wrote back and said I was, asked how she and the grandkids were doing. She responded with a thumbs up emoji. That was the whole conversation. This wasn't how I imagined it would be. When the children were young and the house was full of noise and chaos and sticky handprints on every surface, I used to daydream about what it would be like when they grew up. I pictured Sunday dinners with everyone gathered around the table, grandchildren running through the backyard the way their parents once did, holidays full of laughter and the comfortable ease of family who genuinely wanted to be together. I thought we were building something permanent, something that would hold. Walter and I worked so hard to give them a good life, a stable home, everything they needed. We thought that was enough. We thought the foundation we were laying would last. Walter and I married young, both of us just 23. We met at a company picnic, his company, not mine. I'd gone with a girlfriend who worked there. He was quiet and steady and kind, worked as an accountant at a manufacturing firm. Not exciting work, but reliable, and reliability mattered to me. I'd grown up with a father who changed jobs every couple years, who was always chasing the next opportunity that never quite panned out. I wanted different from that. Walter offered different. We dated for 8 months, got engaged, married 6 months after that, in a simple ceremony at the Methodist church. We moved into a small apartment on the south side of town and started our life together. Jenny came along 2 years later, then Paul 18 months after that, then Amanda 3 years after Paul. 3 children in 6 years. The apartment got too small, so we scraped together a down payment and bought a 3-bedroom house in a neighborhood full of young families, just like us. Walter worked long days, and I stayed home with the kids, which was what most women did then. Not all, but most. I didn't mind it. I liked being home with them when they were little, liked the routines we developed, the rhythm of our days. Breakfast and cartoons and trips to the park. Lunch and nap time and afternoon play. Dinner with Walter when he got home. Baths and bedtime stories, and the house finally quiet by 8 o'clock. Then up the next morning to do it all again. We were busy in the way all young families are busy. There was always something that needed doing, always someone who needed attention. Jenny was the responsible one even as a small child, always making sure her younger siblings were okay, always following the rules. Paul was the wild one, constantly getting into things, climbing trees too high, and riding his bike too fast, and coming home with scraped knees and torn jeans. Amanda was the dreamer, quiet and internal, spending hours playing elaborate make-believe games by herself in her room. They fought sometimes the way siblings do, argued over toys, and whose turn it was, and who had to sit in the middle seat in the car. But they also played together, built forts in the living room, put on shows for Walter and me where we'd sit on the couch and clap, and tell them how talented they were. I thought they'd always be close. They seemed close then. Walter was a good father in his way. He provided for us, never missed a day of work, made sure we always had what we needed. But he wasn't comfortable with the emotional side of parenting, the talking and explaining and dealing with feelings. When the kids were upset, he'd leave that to me, retreat to his workshop in the garage, or turn up the television. When they needed discipline, he was too harsh or too lenient, never quite found the middle ground. So I handled most of the actual parenting, while he handled the finances and the yard work and the car maintenance. We divided our marriage into territories and mostly stayed in our own lanes. It worked well enough. We didn't fight much. We were partners in the practical sense, if not always in the emotional one. As the kids got older, they each developed their own paths. Jenny did well in school, got good grades, went to college on a partial scholarship. She met Daniel her sophomore year and married him right after graduation. They moved 2 hours away for his job. Paul was less academic, preferred working with his hands, went to vocational school, and became an electrician. He married young too, divorced young too, remarried a few years later to a woman named Beth, who already had 2 kids from her first marriage. Amanda was the last to leave, went to community college for a while but never finished, worked retail for years before meeting her husband Greg at the store where she worked. They settled about an hour away, had 2 kids, seemed happy enough from what I could tell from our occasional phone calls. The distance between us grew so gradually I didn't notice it happening until it had already happened. At first everyone came home regularly. Sunday dinners were common. Birthdays and holidays brought everyone together. But slowly those gatherings became less frequent. Jenny's kids got involved in activities that kept them busy on weekends. Paul's work schedule was unpredictable. Lots of overtime and emergency calls. Amanda said the drive was hard with young children. Everyone had reasons, good reasons, understandable reasons. I didn't push. I didn't want to be the kind of mother who made demands, who made her children feel guilty for living their own lives. So I said I understood, said we'd get together soon, said to let me know when they had time. The gaps between visits grew longer. Phone calls became less frequent too. At first we talked every week, then every couple weeks, then maybe once a month. The conversations got shorter, more surface level. Everyone was always busy, always rushing to the next thing. I'd ask about the grandkids and get brief updates. School was fine. Activities were keeping them busy. Everyone was healthy. I'd share little bits about my life, things I'd done or people I'd seen, but there wasn't much to share really. My days were quiet and similar to each other. I'd ask if they wanted to come visit, and they'd say maybe soon, or they'd suggest I come visit them. But then weeks would pass, and nothing would be planned. I tried inviting everyone for Christmas one year. Said I'd cook the whole meal. They just had to show up. Jenny said they were going to Daniel's parents. Paul said Beth's kids were with their father that year, and they wanted to have Christmas at home. Amanda came, but seemed distracted the whole time. Kept checking her phone. Left earlier than planned. Walter noticed it too, but he didn't talk about it much. That wasn't his way. He'd ask sometimes if I'd heard from Jenny or Paul or Amanda, and when I'd say not recently, he'd just nod and go back to whatever he was doing. I think it bothered him more than he let on. He'd built his whole life around providing for this family, and now the family was scattered and distant, and he didn't know how to fix it. Neither of us did. We just kept going through our routines, kept waiting for the phone to ring, kept hoping the next holiday would be different. When Walter got sick, it happened fast. He'd been feeling tired for a few months, but we both thought it was just age catching up with him. Then one day he collapsed in the garage, and I found him there and called the ambulance, and by the time we got to the hospital they were telling me it was his heart, and it wasn't good. The kids all came then. They showed up at the hospital within hours of my call, sat with me in the waiting room, took turns going back to see him when the nurses allowed it. For those few days we were together again, united by crisis and fear. Walter made it through the surgery, but he was never the same after. Weaker, tired all the time. Couldn't do most of the things he used to do. The kids visited more often those first few months after he came home. They'd check in, ask if we needed anything, make sure we were managing. But as Walter stabilized and it became clear he wasn't dying immediately, the visits spaced out again. Everyone went back to their busy lives. He lived another year and a half after that surgery. Toward the end, the kids came around more again, helped with doctor appointments and medications, and all the practical things that need handling when someone is dying slowly. They were there at the hospital when he passed. They came to the funeral and stayed for a few days after to help me sort through his things and handle the paperwork. Then they went back to their lives, and I was left alone in this house that suddenly felt enormous and empty. The real turning point for me came about 6 months after Walter died. It was my birthday, my 72nd. And I woke up that morning with this small hope that maybe the kids would come by. Maybe we'd have dinner together. Maybe it would feel like old times. I'd mentioned my birthday in passing to each of them during our last phone calls, not asking for anything, just mentioning it. The day came and went quietly. Jenny called in the morning, wished me happy birthday, chatted for a few minutes, then had to go. Paul sent a text around noon. Amanda called in the evening, talked for maybe 5 minutes. No one suggested getting together. No one came by. I spent the day alone, made myself a small dinner, watched television until bedtime. That night I lay in the dark and realized that this was how it was going to be from now on. My children loved me. I didn't doubt that. But they didn't need me anymore, and they didn't particularly want to spend time with me. I was their mother. They felt obligated to check in occasionally. But I wasn't really part of their daily lives, or even their weekly lives. I was peripheral, and that hurt in a way I didn't have words for. I've spent a lot of time since then thinking about how we got here. I've examined my own part in it, the ways I might have contributed to this distance. I think about how Walter and I never really taught the kids how to maintain relationships that required effort. We showed them how to be responsible, how to work hard, how to meet obligations, but we didn't model emotional intimacy or vulnerability, or the kind of communication that keeps people truly connected. Walter and I had a good marriage in many ways, but we weren't particularly close emotionally. We didn't have deep conversations or share our fears or support each other through difficult feelings. We just kept moving forward, handling what needed to be handled, assuming love was understood without needing to be expressed directly. The kids learned that pattern from us. They learned to be dutiful but distant, to fulfill obligations without genuine connection. I also think about how I never wanted to be a burden, never wanted to be the needy mother who demanded too much of her children's time. So I always said I was fine, always told them not to worry, always insisted they didn't need to visit if they were busy. I thought I was being considerate, giving them space to live their lives without guilt. But maybe what I was really doing was teaching them that I didn't need them, that I was perfectly content on my own, that their presence in my life was optional. Maybe if I'd been more honest about feeling lonely, about wanting to see them more, about missing them, things would be different. But that kind of honesty felt like weakness, felt like asking for something they might not want to give, and I couldn't bear the thought of that rejection. And then there's the simple truth that they have their own lives now, their own families and responsibilities and concerns. They're busy raising their own children, managing their own marriages, dealing with their own problems. I'm a chapter in their past, not a central part of their present. That's the natural order of things in some ways. Children grow up and create their own families, and the family they came from becomes less important. I understand that intellectually, but emotionally it's hard to accept. I gave them everything I had for so many years, shaped my entire life around their needs. And now I'm just an occasional phone call, an obligation fulfilled out of duty rather than desire. I don't blame them exactly. They're not bad people. They're just busy people living busy lives, and I'm old now, no longer essential, no longer needed. They've moved on, and I'm the one who got left behind. That's how it feels anyway. Like the family I built, the family I devoted my entire adult life to creating and maintaining, slowly drifted away, and I'm the only one who stayed in place. Everyone else moved forward and outward, and I'm still here in this house where we used to all be together, surrounded by memories of what was. The hardest part is not having anyone to blame. There was no big fight, no falling out, no dramatic break. Just a slow erosion of connection, like water wearing away stones so gradually you don't see it happening until the shape has changed completely. We're still a family on paper, still connected by blood and history, but the actual living relationship has become minimal. We exchange pleasantries and basic information. We fulfill the bare requirements of family ties. But we don't really know each other anymore. Don't share our real lives with each other. Don't turn to each other for support or comfort or companionship. Sometimes I think about calling one of them and being completely honest. Saying I'm lonely. Saying I miss them. Saying I wish we could be closer. But what would that accomplish? They'd probably feel bad. Might make more effort for a little while. But eventually things would slide back to how they are. You can't manufacture closeness that isn't there. You can't make people want to spend time with you. And I don't want their pity or their guilt-motivated visits. I want genuine connection, the kind that comes naturally because both people want it. That's what's missing, the wanting. They don't seem to want what I want, and I can't force that into being. So I sit here with this box of Christmas decorations, and I think about putting up the tree like I used to do, hanging all the ornaments with their memories attached. Jenny's handmade one from 2nd grade. Paul's clay handprint from kindergarten. Amanda's glittery star she made in Girl Scouts. All the store-bought ones Walter and I collected over the years, each one marking a different Christmas, when we were all together, and I didn't know those years were limited, didn't know they'd eventually end. Part of me wants to decorate the house, keep the traditions alive even if I'm keeping them alive alone. But another part of me wonders what the point would be. Who would see it? Who would appreciate it? Who would even know the decorations were up besides me? I haven't decided yet what I'll do. Maybe tomorrow I'll feel differently. Maybe tomorrow I'll pull out the tree and hang the lights and make this house look festive even if it's just for myself. Or maybe I'll put the box back in the attic and leave things as they are, quiet and undecorated, honest about the reality of my life now. Either way, I'll be alone with whatever choice I make. That's what I've learned these past few years. The family I built slowly drifted away, and I'm here now with what's left, which is mostly memories and this quiet house and the occasional phone call that never quite fills the emptiness. I'm trying to make peace with that. Some days I do better than others. Today isn't one of the better days, but tomorrow might be. That's all I can hope for really. That tomorrow might be a little easier to bear than today.